We have new COVID recommendations coming out of the CDC. Antifa is back at it in Portland. And then we have a black people problem at Facebook. These stories and more on your Not So News update. Please drop a like and subscribe if you're looking for daily news content, and let's dive on in. Starting us off from AP News, we have fully vaccinated people can gather together without masks. This is a recommendation coming from our CDC overlords down in DC. They are, everything that we need to listen to when it comes to opening up and doing anything at all nowadays. In the article, they say fully vaccinated Americans can gather with other vaccinated people indoors without wearing a mask or social distancing, according to long-awaited guidance from federal health officials. The recommendations also say that vaccinated people can come together in the same way in a single household with people considered at low risk for severe disease, such as in the case of vaccinated grandparents visiting healthy children and grandchildren. The Centers for Disease Control and Prevention announced the guidance on Monday, which is yesterday. Now we can finally, now that we've been given the green light from the CDC, we're allowed to start seeing grandma. Great news now. Eventually you give it another year, we might finally be able to go to the funeral that we had to miss for grandma last year. We might be able to see her burial site. But let's continue to look at how other states are responding. From the Denver channel, we see that Wyoming is lifting its mask mandate restrictions on restaurants, bars, and gyms. On March 16th, the governor asked Wyomingites, which is what a Wyoming individual citizen is called, to take personal responsibility for their actions and stay diligent. This seems to be the obvious standard that we could have held for the last year, is that, if you're an at-risk, high, obese, whether you have like obesity, diabetes, any major health risk, you could have, taken more precautions when it comes to limiting your exposure to interacting with individuals, and we could have been out of this a lot earlier. A lot of states have been doing that, and most of them are, middle of the road when it comes to their COVID numbers. If we look at the article, Colorado's neighbor to the north and Wyoming are the latest to say they will lift their mask mandate and allow bars, restaurants, gyms, and theaters to return to normal operations in the coming weeks. The move will happen on March 16th, according to Wyoming Governor Mark Gordon, who announced the lifting of restrictions Monday. The move came after Texas and Mississippi announced they would be lifting most of the restrictions last week, which led to criticism from the Biden administration. We have been very clear that now is not the time to release the full restrictions, the CDC director, Dr. Rachel Walensky, said last week. Every individual is empowered to do the right thing here, regardless of what the states decide, for personal health, for public health, for loved ones and their communities. Big thing here is obviously this goes against the CDC mandates, because the CDC does not care about individual freedoms. The CDC cares about one thing purely, and that is the number of individuals that die from this disease, and that's their right to care about. But the CDC is not in charge of you having your individual liberty to talk to grandma. We have in the Epoch Times reports that a mayor pro tem of California City resigns after pleading guilty to election fraud. This happened during 2020, which was, from my understanding, the most clean election with no errors whatsoever, no fraud whatsoever. So we cannot question the results for anything besides this mayor in California. In the article, they state the mayor pro tem of a Northern California city resigned after he pleaded guilty to election fraud, according to local reports last week. Crescent City Mayor pro tem Alex Campbell entered the plea of making false declarations of candidacy in Del Norte County Superior Court. Local news outlet Wild Rivers Outpost reported, citing the city's clerk office. Campbell submitted a form to the Del Norte County clerk on August 6, 2020, saying his current address was in Crescent City when his actual residence was outside the city limits. Deputy District Attorney Aaron Bryant told Del Norte County Superior Court Judge Bob Cochran. This hits two things that when it comes to the issues with election is, one, that there's the issue of, did the person who actually voted vote did someone else kind of take their ballots or whatever? And then there's a second issue of, did the person vote in the proper location? If someone lives in Florida but they vote in Georgia, obviously that counts as election fraud as well. And there is a third thing, which is kind of what we saw in Pennsylvania, with a kind of trying to understand what role the federal and states have when it comes to holding their elections, as well as how do states need to enforce their own election rules. We have from ABC News that authorities arrest Oath Keeper seen with Trump advisor Roger Stone on the morning of the insurrection on January 6th. Robert Minuta was seen flanking Roger Stone in D.C. on the morning of January 6th. In an article of the State of New York, man with ties to the Oath Keepers militia group and former President Donald Trump longtime advisor Roger Stone has been arrested and charged in connection with the January 6th Capitol riot. Robert Minuta, a Newborough, New York, was seen in video first unearthed by ABC News flanking Roger Stone on the morning of January 6th outside a Washington, D.C. hotel. In the video, Minuta can be seen standing with Stone wearing a baseball hat and military-style vest branded with the Oath Keepers logo. At this time, I'm not sure why he was actually arrested. If I'm assuming it has some ties into what happened on January 6th. But as far as I understand, just being in DC would not be considered criminal. So there's an assumption here that he helped escalate some of the events that were going on during the riots on January 6th. From DCERN, we have a Black people problem. Facebook is under investigation of systemic race discrimination. The social media giant Facebook is reportedly under investigation from the federal government's Equal Employment Opportunity Commission for discriminating against Black Americans in their hiring and promotion procedures. This comes from a Facebook operations manager, Oscar Venezzi, who it's kind of complaining about a procedure that most companies have where if they refer a candidate to a company and the company hires them, they get a $5,000 bonus. The complaint is that because the racial makeup of the company is predominantly non-Black, it's a concern for the Black employees who don't have as much opportunities to get the $5,000 bonus. Something that's not mentioned in here that seems irrelevant is what the hiring numbers are for white individuals at Facebook. Also, being predominantly non-Black is expected as the Black population of the United States makes up little under 20%. So you would expect at least around, the 20% number for the makeup. And if anything, you would probably expect the hiring to be further or to be above that 20% number because of how much there's been a move for things like affirmative action and whatnot. Next, an update on the blueanon story from yesterday. If you remember, we looked into what blueanon was on Urban Dictionary, which is essentially just the collaboration of all the left-wing conspiracy theories, such as Russia, Jussie Smollett, Ukraine, Covington Kids, Brett Kavanaugh, as a kind of an antithesis to QAnon, essentially being just a left-wing version of all of the conspiracy theories that they kind of embrace. It's to note that it is back up on Urban Dictionary, so our news from yesterday is no longer needed, that it has been re-added on March 7th, so we came back 2 days ago. From PJ Media, we have reports that an Antifa group tweets "burn the schools" and an arsonist targets Portland school building. If you remember, this does meet the standard for inciting violence. So we'll see if any of these individuals are prosecuted as a result of this. This reporting is done by Andy No, who tweets some of the following. The Portland Public Schools headquarters was severely damaged in an arson attack. One of the graffiti messages repeats a BLM Antifa mantra. An anarchist symbol was also sprayed on the building. Here you can see some of the fire damage. And it looks like the arson attack on Portland Public Schools may be Antifa connected. Antifa groups had called for terrorist attacks on Saturday, and schools in particular have been explicitly stated as targets for months. We see the following tweets, one coming from Full Stop Affinity, YLF, and GAF. We will fuck shit up. Filter Distro PGH, Kill People, Burn Shit, Fuck School, and PNW Youth Liberation Front. Youth Liberation, Burn the Schools, and Destroy the Media. We have the following coming from the school superintendent, Guadalupe Guerrero. I want to thank the Portland Fire Bureau for their quick response in effectively containing what could have been further destruction. Thank you also to our dedicated PPS Connect security, custodial, and facilities teams for addressing all the property damage. We have the following statement that came from the superintendent as well. The Portland Public Schools Central Office Administration building was vandalized overnight. The incident included multiple district vehicles being set on fire, in addition to food delivery and maintenance vans being destroyed. Office windows were smashed and graffiti was sprayed painting on the building. While I am relieved no one was hurt and there was no further damage to the building, this malicious attack of arson and property destruction last night was criminal and it has no place in our community. This was an attack on our city's public school system. This act of violence will not deter us from our commitment to educating our students, providing them meals, or any of the other work we are privileged to carry out every day in support of students and families. We're grateful to the Portland Fire Bureau for responding quickly and extinguishing the fire before any additional damages occurred in and around the property. I also want to thank our hardworking maintenance, custodial, and security service staff, whom I observed and consulted with on site as the damage was assessed and cleanup began before sunrise this morning. This kind of just continues a lot of the violence that we saw over the summer, where Antifa was taking over the BLM protests and turning them into the fiery but mostly peaceful riots. And this is your March 9th Not City News update. Once again, please like and subscribe if you're looking for daily news content, and have a good one.